Hi everyone, welcome to, for me anyway, it's Sunday. I don't know if this will go up Sunday or Monday, but I wanted to give you, as you can see by the title, a gigantic update on a few different areas and discuss a few smaller topics as we go ahead, and you know how the next few weeks is going to be in my life. I also thought I'd give you a different view. I always kind of sit angled a little bit that way and you look at the same bookshelf and the same, so I thought I'd give you just a different background than what you're normally used to. At least my Tibetan singing bowls, I guess, is in the background of this one. So I wanted to let you know first off that I will be taking 2 weeks off from making any videos. I'm taking a complete technology break starting tomorrow, Monday. Well, I wouldn't say so much a technology break completely, in that I'm going to take a break from screens. I've been really examining, because I've been looking at screens a bit more than usual now in the last 3 or 4 months, and I think the screen, it doesn't matter whether it's a television screen, a computer screen. Even now I'm looking into a screen. I'm not using a camera, I'm using my iPod for this. And it does something, the screen itself, having to obtain information and images from the screen does something to the brain. So my goal is to take 2 weeks and pretty much just, it's a perfect time with the solstice coming up, with the Christmas period, to use that as a little break, as an experiment to see how the brain functions. And I'll tell you what videos I'm going to be coming back with right after the Christmas holiday. It's also good for me to take this time because the growth of this channel and what's happened here has been so darn surprising to me. I'm just, you know, I remember when I had 20 subscribers. I remember when I got my 100th subscriber, and I was, you know, wow, I'm excited. There's people actually think there's something of value here for them. And then all of a sudden I got the very kind recommendation by Matt, and things started to change overnight. And it's grown so quickly, and there's been such a change that I haven't really been able to take a moment and just also step back and say, okay, what does that mean now, and what do I need to do going forward to handle what's now a very changed situation? Very positive. I'm very glad for it, but it's different, and I have to. It's good also just to take a little time and go within and just, okay, feel that out, and how do I want to come back into this environment with what I'm saying. So, and added that we've got the solstice coming up, which I do think this year will have an impact. I don't think that like life is going to be any different on December the 22nd than it was on December the 21st, outwardly at least. But I think there will, if there's going to be a year in the last decade or so that you really should take some time focusing on the solstice and the energies that are coming, this is the year. This is the year to do that. So I'm also going to be doing that. I don't know about you guys, but I've seen a lot of the things in the comments. I'm jumping now, topics. That I've noticed a lot of my friends have just disappeared in the last few months. And I'm sure this channel and these videos are a big reason why a lot of people don't want to have any contact with me anymore. There's not many people I saw in person in my life, but I hardly ever see them. And of the people that, let's say I had like intermediate email here, email there, how are you doing? Those are all done. Those are kind of gone. So I'm kind of wanting to let you know that I know there's a lot of people who've commented in some of the other videos of this situation of even feeling alone in your own family, where your own family feels like they don't want to talk to you anymore because you're not going to be afraid and live in fear like they are. And so I just want to let you know that it seems to be happening to everyone. And the more you try to hold on to your humanness now, the more you try to hold on to not living in fear, the more you try to hold to living on to just seeing reality as it really is, at least the dream of reality, right? Seeing the dream of reality as it's being presented globally and not being sucked into it means you're not in it. You know, we're not in the same world as 5 or 6 billion people. 5 billion people have their world. 1 billion people are on the fence, and then there's 1 billion that are on a completely other side of this. And that is getting smaller and smaller. On one sense, it's getting bigger and bigger. But I'm just letting you know, I'm feeling that it's kind of a lot of cases, you know, you feel friendless. And but I don't want to say you feel alone, because you always, no matter what, you always have your own self to go into. You always can go inward. You always can go in, either to see deeper parts of yourself. Maybe I'll do a video on journeying after Christmas, where you can, a process of going within to meet hopefully beings with some wisdom that can share knowledge and information with you. So these things are always available to you, even when you have no external other worldly humans to interact with. So I'm just letting you know that. I did 3 interviews this week. So in the course of while I'm gone, I'm going to give you a bunch of channels and some other things to check out. But I have 3 videos. They'll be in the description box below. Another one with Crow 777. It was very nice of him to do another one with me. This one was mostly on the ancient world, so completely different. And then I did 2 talks that did turn out, even though there was a focus of like a half an hour on the World's Fairs in these other 2 interviews. Both interviewers were both very, very good, very knowledgeable people, took the interviews in sort of completely different directions. So they are discounting that sort of similar roughly 30 minutes of them. The other hour or so is completely different. One was Freeman Fly, right? And that one came up yesterday, and one with Robert Phoenix. That was the live stream that happened on Friday night. So the links are below, and you're welcome to go and see if there's something in there. Like I say, they're very different. Turned out to be very different interviews, and I'm thankful for all of them. And if you're looking for some other channels, I haven't said this a lot, but I keep forgetting sometimes, but some channels that, you know, who do I sort of check into? Who do I kind of watch sometimes? And one of the ones, of course, I think is terrific is Awaken with JP. And all of these ones I'm going to talk about, I'm going to make sure I've put in my, what do you call that, favorite list on the first page, on the homepage? Yeah. So Awaken with JP, I mean, not only is he a really good comedian, excellent comedian, and he's using the comedy to take the world apart that we're living in and show the stupidity of it. And he's doing it really smartly in such a way that I think he's only had 1 video deleted up to this point. So he's done it really, really smartly. So highly recommend some of JP's most interesting videos, and even some of the ones of spirituality are also unbelievably funny, have an unbelievable truth to them. A couple of new channels that I've kind of looked into recently. One is Susquehanna Alchemy. Person who's been studying, I guess, the very strange historical structures and history around the Susquehanna River on the east coast of the United States. And he's doing a really good job in his research, really good job in his presentation. Has a good understanding of alchemic principles that he's able to bring in and sort of reveal a lot of stuff in there. He did another interesting one on baseball, a lot of stuff I knew, but some stuff about the Theosophical Society I didn't know. I still haven't added my stuff about the history of hockey and how it links to the Micmac Indians, the same Indians who had the Templar flag and the Egyptian hieroglyphic language. So even the sports that we think of have some kind of much deeper origin than just, again, magically invented in the 1980s. Magically invented in the 1880s. Robert Seppaher, I think I've said his name right, he's also doing a lot of hermetic and alchemic digging into a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, whether it be southern France, ancient Greece, ancient whatever. I haven't mentioned him before because there's a lot of ads in his videos, and so it sometimes just throws me off, particularly when it's wisdom or knowledge, and I'd like to be able to just take it all in and not have it broken up like that. So I'll leave that with you. But his research and what he's doing, I think, is very valid and very clear. So the ad thing is just something everybody will have to deal with on their own. Of course, if you're new, Matt over at Quantum of Conscious had a lot of really good videos up. I don't know what he's going to be doing now that he's probably not here very long on this platform. I'm sort of keeping up to date to how he's doing things in case that's what I'm going to have to do later as well. A lot of course, if you're looking for historical stuff, you already probably know about them. They've been out here much longer than I have. People like John Levy and Autodidactic and Martin Leedkey and UAP, Static in the Attic, Conspiracy R Us. So there's lots of good researchers, and obviously there are others that I just either haven't come across yet or forgotten off the top of my head. There's also that Crow 777. While they have their website, they also have the YouTube channel running, and they still have lots of really good interviews with some really interesting people on there. Those are recommended. Even Jay Wiedner has some really interesting interviews. The guy I was interviewed with last week. So there's a lot of sources you can go to and get information. If you're looking for information on where the situation is now, I've been watching on the Bit channel. I've been watching the Crow House. Over here, I watch a lot of Computing Forever, Corbett Report, Carl Vernon. So there's lots out there if you want to keep your hand in a lot of different areas. Somebody asked me for some books recommendation. We're shifting gears again. So I'm going to share with you some books and some movies as well. And so if I was going to recommend a few books for you, some really good, some really interesting. One would be Perfect Brilliant Stillness by David Karse. It's a very specific point of awakening, the awakening to the non-reality of reality. But he does a fairly good job with describing it quite clearly, and especially for someone who is not interested in being a teacher in any kind of shape or form, meeting any people, having any conversations. He just wanted to write a book. Did really, really good. Another one that's really interesting, of course, I've mentioned a few times, would be Fool's Crow by Thomas Mayles, Wisdom and Power. Really good book for learning some of how native, indigenous healing practices are looked at from their perspective. There's a book, if you're looking into Tat Foundation stuff, and the Tat Foundation has the publishers of my Falling for Truth book. They have some tremendously good authors, be they Art Tickner or Bart Marshall or, Sean or Bob, or a whole bunch of really good stuff. But if you're kind of interested in kind of getting a step into it, After the Absolutes by Dave Gold and Bart Marshall, though Bart Marshall's name isn't on the top of it anymore. It's a good narrative overview of sort of Richard Rose and what it was like to be around him in the 70s and 80s. I know there's a lot of people in the Tat Foundation that aren't as happy with some things that are said in the book, but it's a useful introduction to that group's presentation, and see do you want to go in deeper to some of the other people who are sharing their stuff. So that's a way of going through that. Still, John Anthony West, even after all these years, Serpent in the Sky is still a great book. Still a really good overview of the symbolist, mythological, sacred geometry, sacred mathematics involved in the ancient world, particularly in ancient Egypt. So that can be a good read if you're looking for something in that area. What else can I recommend to you? You probably won't be able to find it anymore. I don't think it really exists, but Hermes Unveiled is a phenomenal book for get you thinking of alchemic symbolism and hermetic symbolism in everything, basically. These are, really impossible to find, but if you happen to find one, highly recommended. I'm just taking a break while I let my cat in. Okay, I had to take a break there. My cat wanted in, so I thought I'd better let him in rather than stay outside in the rain. He's a really, really good cat. So he's I've had him for almost 2 years now. He's was a rescue cat, and he has become an unbelievably wonderful, friendly little guy over the last little while. But he loves to eat. I'm going to share some movies, but not specifically movies that I think you should watch. I mean, we've talked a lot about those things, be they Donnie Darko or, you know, Dark City, Pleasantville, Groundhog Day, and a whole bunch of movies. But I thought there are some movies that were made that were terrible movies, like terrible, but the novels were outstanding. And I want to share that if you're looking also for something to read that's novelty, that also is a really good story, I'll make a few suggestions to you. The first would be The Bridges of Madison County, which I think was a really miscast movie compared to the book. The book is really, really good, and key elements of what made the story so important to understand the connection of those two characters was lost in the movie. And it's why I would recommend the book without question. Oddly enough, some women from long ago in my life had each said in their own way that the main character of that book, Robert Kincaid, is when they read the book, they would read me. That was how they saw me. At least the me that was here in the 1990s anyway, and early 2000s. And I can certainly, it took time for me even to see what they were seeing. So it also could give you a glimpse into how other people at least saw me many years ago. But it is a quality book for the interaction of those two people. Another, maybe the worst movie ever made was Timeline, one of Michael Crichton's stories. I couldn't believe that what was a good book, but a good novel, but was a bit long, was a little wordy, could have been tightened up, you could have lost 100 pages, but had really important information about history and time travel and the ideas behind it and the control of history and the just tons of really important stuff. They took almost all of that important stuff out, just turned it into an action movie, and then cast it with the worst acting imaginable. Like, it was painful to watch the movie. Like, painful is how bad. I could have got a bunch of high school learning to be actors to have made the movie, and they would have done a far better job. But the book, the novel Timeline, is pretty good. Come on. Come on. So that's one I'd recommend. Another is the novel Replay. That's this one here. That's never been made into a movie yet because I know they would botch it up. They tried anyway. Ken Grimwood. It's a good novel. It's about what if you were living your life over and over again. It's like Groundhog Day, but in a lifetime rather than just an individual day. And on one side, I mean, it is really where the idea for Groundhog Day came from. There's no way somebody came up with that without having read this novel, coming across it. And while I think Groundhog Day actually is a better movie because Replay in many cases doesn't really dig in properly to the character development that is required for what this experience would be like, that I think Groundhog Day does really well, but Replay does move into some really good spiritual and philosophic questions of the experience itself. And for that reason, I think that it's a really good novel and worth reading. Another novel that was turned into a decent movie, that was Into the Wild, the one on the life of Chris McCandless. But so much from a kind of a novel, right? It's sort of written about him after he's done, which looks at people who are similar to McCandless, who also chose to just dump society behind them and walk into the wild and live totally alone from it. It's the stories of some of these other people who lived in, New Mexico, the wilds of New Mexico, Arizona. That's an important part of the story that really couldn't make it into the movie. So even though it's a decent movie, that novel does provide a lot of really interesting information. If you're looking for sort of a fun little spiritual read, another really bad movie, Way of the Peaceful Warrior from that Dan Millman book. The book was not too bad. It was kind of interesting. It had a few interesting moments in it. He's lying about a lot of stuff, obviously. He's not being totally truthful, and I don't know why he tried to pretend like he was presenting a truthful story when he was obviously making stuff up. But still, it's an okay read. Movie was just horrible. I guess another last book to think about that could be useful at this time would be The Plague by Albert Camus from the 1940s. And he's, of course, writing about the German occupation of France in symbolically as if it's a plague. But I'm sure, I haven't read the story, I'm going to read it myself again. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of parallels in Camus' writing to where we are right now. Yeah, so speaking of books, of course, if you're still interested in having one of my books or have one, would like another one, maybe you should be ordering a few more right now, because we don't know how long channels will be up on various platforms. We don't know how long internet sites are going to be allowed to be up if you say things that somebody doesn't like, how long the internet itself will be up, and even for books, we don't know how long certain books will be available to be purchased or not purchased. So if there are books that, and I'm not just saying my books, I mean like any books, if there's books that are sitting there that are on that fine edge, it might be on the edge, like you're thinking, yeah, in 6 or 8 months this book may not be allowed anymore, you better get them now. And because this kind of stuff can disappear easily. This is the easiest way to control information, because if it's all on a screen and it's all technically listed as, you know, just code behind it, anybody can go in, change the code, and the information will become changed. We've already seen that happen a lot in the last few months. But a book, well, you can go into the matrix itself and change all of the stuff in a book. It's pretty wild that they're able to do that right now. That's part of what the Mandela effect is really all about, I think, is this ability to change pieces of anything in the matrix, in the dream we live in. But it's harder. It's much harder to do. And so they're less likely to start changing books unless they need to. So it's just a reminder, if you got books, oh, I had one more book to show you. That was this one. I'm going to do a video on this at some point, The Vertical Plane. That's an amazing story. I'd been waiting 10 years to read this book. I'd heard about it, and when I finally read, I think I've read it 4 times. I probably got this book early in the summer. Yeah, I've read it 4 times. And it's hard to know, is it true? Is it a really good story? No question. The book, at least, has huge alchemical symbolism in it and huge alchemical codes in the book, which is why I'd kind of like to, at some point, get into that book. Okay, let's talk about upcoming videos. We're getting there. When I come back, and I'll already begin putting these together while I'm taking my tech break, the first video I'm going to come back with is on a really huge topic, and that is simulation. The simulation aspect of reality. In a lot of certainly in all the interviews I've had to do recently, I've had to keep a focus on what might be classified as awakening in the dream, which is awakening to the structure of the dream itself, how the matrix functions, the mind connection to it, the prison-like connection to it, all of this stuff. But I couldn't go to too deep of a level, particularly because it's not my show, it's their show. And they're generally really, the people who've been interviewing me have a really upbeat, optimistic feeling about this situation and the dream we're in and whatnot. And I didn't want to get in and create any problems for the interviewer and create a situation. But the other side of awakening is, of course, that's one type of awakening. The other type of awakening is awakening to see that all of this is not real. All of this is non-reality, and that includes the me sitting here. The thing sitting here is also just as unreal as everything else. And the problem becomes, as you get like a person like, well, most of the books are writing that are being honest are writing from this type of awakening. The book like Perfect Brilliant Stillness that I showed you, it's writing from the awakening I just talked about. But both are, again, there's still dual side. There's still two parts of types of awakenings, and the truth of anything is always in the middle. It's always in the gap between the two things. So even if someone is bringing, no matter what side, they're bringing really clear clarity to that part they're talking about, they have to be able to speak both sides clearly, and they have to, I think, be able to live in the gap, in the space between the two. That's that middle way, and the middle way is knowing both sides of awakening and still moving or appearing to move forward with your character in this reality. So I'm going to do an entire thing about the simulation aspect of reality, the realness, the non-realness, ways of testing it, ways I tested it. So it's going to be an extremely detailed video. That's why it's good I have time to really think about it for you, because it's not going to be easy to put together, and it's probably not going to be easy to hear. It's going to be my Plato's Cave videos on steroids. Because it still happened to me yesterday, just as an example. I went for a walk in the forest, and there was a small kid's birthday party going on out there. And one guy was standing there and looked exactly like an airplane mechanic that I knew back in Canada. I mean, like, exact. And this guy was a really big, in shape, you know, almost looking like a football player kind of guy. There's not many like that in Norway. Norway is not a place that has a lot of big, strong guys here. So this guy also had a build that doesn't really fit in with this part of the world, and he had the same facial features and the same hair and even the same kind of clothes. I had to get really close just to make sure it wasn't him. Like, did they move to this part of the world? I didn't know about it, you know, like. But it's an example of getting into the simulation part of reality. So why is the Matrix introducing someone? How many times have you seen that in your own life, right? Seen somebody that looks almost exactly like someone else that you know, almost that you can't tell them apart. They look so similar. Does the Matrix, does the dream only have a certain number of body shells that it can create characters in? And you know, there's really only 2,000 types, and they have to just keep, everyone's just recycled, and there's not the kind of variety we think there are? Is it a message from the dream to me somehow about remembering something from that time in my life or that period? Because there was a link a few weeks ago in a dream to someone who was connected to him that I'd had. Is it something from me that I'm mentally projecting, even though I'm not knowing it? I'm projecting something again from my past that needs to be, because I've had this happen a lot with recurring looks of people in recurring, almost similar situations. So you can see where I'm going to go with the whole simulation discussion. There'll be another Rennes Le Chateau video coming up as well. I'm going to do one on sexuality, taking my masculine feminine video and some of the things I wrote in Falling for Truth, and try to take that aspect of reality and talk about it, because people either overly talk about it, focus on it highly, or hide from it, pull away from it. There's rarely a really clear presentation and discussion of the subject, because within the search for the self or the search for truth, you can say, sexuality can be a very powerful, driving, useful force. It can be something that can create tremendous creativity and knowledge. It can also be something that can become a trap and can become a complete block to your knowing and your deepening for truth. And so again, it's another one of these, here's these two sides of a situation, of a topic. Well, what's the truth in the middle of them? What's the knowledge we need to know in the middle of that? And a few people have talked to me about Westworld, and I think I will get to it. Obviously, I can't get to it in the 2 weeks because I'm going to have a screen break, and I would want to watch the whole first season of Westworld before I would do a video and talk about it, so that'll be a little bit afterwards, but I will get to it. Lastly, we'll look ahead to the future for kind of me personally and where we might be going here with this and everything else. And you know, I'm really going to have to pay attention to what Matt is doing over there and how he's going to change his site, and stay in contact with him and see if that's a route I'm going to want to go, because things are going to get harder and harder and harder to speak on this platform. And again, I don't know if I just want to change. I mean, these videos are on other platforms anyway, but you know, the rules will change there too. And it's more of a sense of how can you take at least complete ownership of being able to say what I want, the way I want to say it, and maybe reach less people doing it that way, but at least the people that are being reached with that are really wanting the message and really wanting what's there to share. So I really have to think about that. But that's part of my 2 weeks I'll be doing. How to say this clearly. The world is ending soon. Now, I don't mean your experience in the dream. I mean the world you've always known. The world as when you've looked out your window or gone down the street or gone out for coffee, the world you knew from 2015 or 2005 or 1975, that's gone. That world is gone. It's never, ever coming back. And you have to really get this. It's never, ever coming back. Not going to happen. There is a new world, one way or another, being manifested, being birthed in the process. And we're in a very difficult, chaotic soup in the turning apart of the old world and the creating of this new world that's coming. Is that world going to be a world you want to live in and be a part of, or is that world going to be a complete nightmare? I don't know. If anything, I'm leaning to this particular aspect of reality just becoming a nightmare. I don't see this becoming really positive at all. The hope that I do have, though, is that we might see a split in reality, that reality itself might break, and this current world and this current situation will just continue and sink deeper and deeper and deeper, but there will be a break point. And if you're living the right way, you might say, and if your awareness is good, and if you are living with some honesty and some inner truth, not complete honesty or complete truth, but just some, and you're showing some courage, that runway might be available. And maybe, when I was talking earlier about having no friends, well, if that split happens and 6 billion people all move in that direction and 1 billion move that way altogether, we'll have 1 billion friends, because we'll be 1 billion people who have, or 500 million or 100 million or 2 billion or whatever it is that makes the turn, we'll be together. And but I would be surprising if this specific reality changes much in a positive way, or if it does, it's a long way in the future. Don't expect 2023 to be looking like a fun place here. I'm not saying that to create any kind of fear or concern, or, of course, it's just to have in the back of your mind that don't try to fix this place. The chances of you or me being able to fix it is low. The chance of you or me being able to fix ourselves the way we need to be and maybe helping a few other people, maybe 4 or 5 max, 3 or 4, and maybe not people you're going to be able to meet in your own life, people you're only going to have contact with over the internet, that you can stay connected and help each other to potentially be that kind of aware, clear person that if there's that chance to, hey, we can move to a better place now. We can live a very different experience by turning right, but we have to turn now. We can't come back. The ride is the ride, but the car we're in gives us an opportunity, but you can leave the ride now. This is your point. I think you have to be ready to, whatever needs to be done, that you are prepared, that you can leave the ride. And I think that's also an energetic thing. There'll be some sort of frequency change. And if you can't raise your frequency to what's required, or keep your frequency at the level required, like not allow that frequency to drop to the next level, you've got to be able to know how to hold your frequency. If you can hold that frequency, then there's maybe the chance to move. So I just want to say that's coming, you know. I'm going to leave you with a quote. And you're going to think you know this quote. But I'm going to leave it to you a little differently. This is going to be the quote of the 2-week tech break. The quote is, the meek shall inherit the earth. Okay, you've heard that. It comes so many times, so many descriptions, so many explanations of what that is supposed to mean. I always felt it was an incomplete quote, that the quote was like a Taoist quote or a Zen quote. It has 2 equal pieces to it, and those 2 equal pieces explain the totality of what's being presented. And I think that was the first part. I'll read it now the way I feel the entire quote actually sits. I believe the quote should be, the meek shall inherit the earth, but the courageous shall inherit heaven. The meek shall inherit the earth, but the courageous shall inherit heaven. The earth being matter, the earth being the world of the material, the earth being the world of the prison self. And yes, that makes sense, that the meek, the ones who won't want to stand up to the truth within reality, will not be able to ever leave it. It takes great courage to have to start stepping and walking outside of Plato's cave, to walk out there totally alone, totally in the unknown, totally away from everything you've ever known, every comfort you've ever had, every safe foundation you've held, to be able to say, but I want to know what's true, or I want to live, I want to experience the true depth of my experience, not a depth that's being forced on me from outside. And that takes courage. And that's why I'd said earlier, if there's going to be a split point coming, courage is one of the things that's going to be required, not just to make that turn, but to get you to be the kind of person that will make it. And I know I've read a lot of the comments here. A lot of you watching these videos have a lot of the courage, or are building that courage, or are wanting to appreciate those you see who have it. And it's a very special thing, I think, to have right now, is this courage. Courage to be the self you want to be, and the courage to see that you're not a self at all. So that's where I'll be coming back with in a few weeks. Obviously, if you send me emails in these few weeks, I'm not going to be able to respond to them because I won't be looking at the screen. So be okay that you can send it. It'll be safe. Nothing will happen to it. And then after the 25th or the 26th, I can get to play catch up for a few days with whatever's been going on and whatever needs my attention, and getting this first video done for you. Thanks for an interesting 4 or 5 months you've given me. A really interesting surprise that this is something I never thought I would be having. I never thought it would be something, a channel with, 6,000 subscribers and thousands of people taking time out of your day to sit and listen to what I have to say. It's quite surprising to me, actually. And like I say, it's a very warming thing, and there's a lot of kind things that have been said in the comments towards me, and I really appreciate it. I'm not, for some of you though, I'm not as perfect as you may think I am. Certainly, talk to my wife; she will give you a completely different opinion of me. But that's the challenge of you see me for 30 or 40 minutes twice a week. And it's a little different when you see people all day long. It's one of the things I've talked about, people who want to follow gurus. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling here, Dan, but I feel I need to. People who've wanted to follow gurus and who have read a couple of people's book and gone and watched their lecture or they've taken their course and they treat them like, some sort of God being. And I'm like, you need to get on a plane, you need to go where they live, and you need to live in their house for a week. Go see what it's like when the garbage guy doesn't come and pick up their garbage on Friday morning. What's it like when their sister calls and tells them that they're expected to be at a birthday party they don't want to go to? What happens when the neighbor's dog is barking too loud at night? Don't be thinking that someone is some sort of perfected being or something special or something otherworldly or anything else until you've gone and actually seen them day by day, minute by minute, for quite a long period of time. If somebody can make it through 3 weeks of your examination of being what you think they are, then okay, maybe you've actually found one. But you're going to find a lot of cracks in the armor. You're going to find a lot of non-perfection. It's pretty easy, especially when someone's getting paid $400 or $500 or something to go and talk for a couple of days. Anybody can look pretty holy and pretty happy for 2 days for, $50,000. Again, let's see what happens when their sister they don't like calls and makes a demand on them. Yeah, let's see when the dog is barking next door. Are they really living what they say, or are they just a good actor? So, like I say, thanks for following and feeling I've got something to share and help you with. But also don't get blinded by the thing you see in the videos. The thing you see in the videos is the part of me that comes through here. This part of me isn't always here 24 hours a day, as all of us have our parts, right? Well, 2-week technology break. Maybe some of you will want to also try to take a screen break. There's lots of good things. You can still listen to things. You can still listen to talks on the internet. You don't have to look at the screen. You could turn and look this way and put on a set of headphones or just put it on like it's the radio and go about your day. And you can still hear something or get some information or whatnot and not have to look at the screen. And that's my focus on what I'm going to do for a couple of weeks here. So we'll see you all in time. You've got the interviews if you're interested to maybe listen to rather than watch a screen while you hear them over the next couple of weeks. Lots of other interesting channels, like I've mentioned. They will all be on the feature channel thing. Some books that I popped up in case you want to check those out. And yeah, by all means, we will see you hopefully very clear, very present, very well, we'll see what the solstice does or doesn't do, and if it brings anything for us to talk about when we get to the other side of that. So thanks again, everybody, for your support, your friendship, your donations, the book sales, just the help, the pieces of information you've sent me. It's all appreciated, and I look forward to continuing this as long as we can. Cheers, everyone.